My name is Jan Rather. I'm the Infrastructure Engagement Specialist in the Mayor's Office. Thank you all for coming out to this meeting about East Ohio Street. Really excited, I think, for DOMI to present their draft plans for the corridor. Before we get started, I do want to bring up Pastor Ken Turnbull. They've offered this amazing space for us to use. Just want him to say a couple words.
Just want to say a couple words. This was our dream, having a space where we can gather together. It belongs to the community. It is your space, and come together and have conversations about improvements. Appreciate the excitement for this weekend. We have Veg Fest, Cannabis Fest. We are a very busy place around here, so it's a good spot to hang out and figure out how to do it even better. So welcome, and thanks for being here.
Thanks. And then I'm also going to bring up Doug Camper real briefly, just to give a community welcome as well.
So welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight. Really appreciate it. Do want to take a minute to thank everyone that's put this together. Jan, your team, for making this happy. The rest of the mayor's office, Panini, planning project, DOMI, all the hard work that you guys have put into this. I think we're, as a community, super excited to see everything that you have going on here. Councilman Wilson's office, Julianne, and the rest of the staff for being fully engaged in this project from day one, and everybody else from the city that's making this happen. But most of all, I did want to take a minute to thank the community, all of you guys that are here tonight, neighbors, residents, business owners, people that care about this neighborhood and East Ohio Street. And I only have one ask for tonight. We're all passionate about East Ohio Street, both good and bad. But what I would ask is that you keep your passion positive. So positive feedbacks, positive comments, constructive things that will help out the engagement this evening. But after we see all the great work that they put into this, that community engagement moving forward, whether it's online or other ways, just keep providing that feedback, because I think if we all give our best opinions and our positive feedback, we're going to get the best project and the best outcome for East Ohio Street. That's going to be in East Ohio Street for all. So thanks, guys.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, real quick, Councilman Wilson's office is represented by Julianne. Director Lucas of DOMI also just walked in. I'm not going to introduce the whole project team because there's a lot of them here and you'll have a chance to have individual conversations. But this is our agenda for the night. We'll start off with some brief introductions. We'll real quick talk about the meeting purpose. We'll have some overview and norms. And then I'm going to hand it off to DOMI to talk about the study area. They'll give a summary of the existing community engagement, what we've heard, and what's being proposed in response to that. We're going to open it up then to some broad top project-specific Q&A here, and then we'll do the discussion session at the roll plot over there. DOMI has a number of staff here. Some of their consultants are here as well to facilitate one-on-one engagements, really look at the plan for the corridor. So I'm joined by Mike Panzita, Senior Project Manager. Just give a wave. Panini Chowdhury, Project Manager. Kevin Brown, Sean Stevens, helping run Zoom tonight. Like I said, I'm Jan Rather. I'm the Infrastructure Engagement Specialist. Your normal neighborhood engagement coordinator is on vacation this week, so she's being represented by Chastity Bay from the mayor's office. So if you have any neighborhood-specific questions that aren't related to the corridor, you can talk to Chastity or myself. And then Rebecca Rinaldo unfortunately couldn't make it tonight, but she says hello to everybody. So again, the purpose of this meeting is to share the draft plan for East Ohio Street, gather feedback, and incorporate ideas prior to plan finalization. So this is the big community engagement portion of the draft plan. There will be the engage page comments will be open, I think, until the 15th, Panini. So if you know folks who couldn't be here tonight, really encourage them to leave comments on the Engage page by August 15th. With that, I'm going to hand it off to DOMI. I'll be around all night, so if anybody needs anything from me, just let me know.
Thanks, Jan. Oh, the slide mover. Thanks again, Jan. For anybody who didn't catch it before, my name's Kevin Brown, Principal Planner here with DOMI. And I'm just going to quickly go over study area profile. You all live, work, or hang out in this neighborhood, so I'm sure you're aware of a lot of these things. But when we were developing the initial planning for this project, we looked at some of the basic demographics for the area, and within those demographics, we always like to look at sub-demographics of sort of vulnerable populations. So children under the age of 18 years old, elderly individuals, and individuals with special mobility needs. And then we also like to look at, because we're Domi, household commute trends. So how do people who live in the neighborhood get around? And we noticed and this is the latest stuff from the ACS, American Community Survey, that 21% of residents in this census tract, 21% do not have access to a vehicle, 14% use public transportation to get to work, and 13% walk to work. We also looked at traffic information for the corridor. So this project area, as I'm sure you're all aware, runs from Cedar Street in the west to Chestnut Street in the east, or vice versa, depending on how you interact with it. And the section that is outlined in black there is the city-owned portion. So that extends from Cedar Ave to East Street. And then the section in gold there is owned by PennDOT, so that extends from East Street to Chestnut Street. And the section that is owned by PennDOT has a lot higher volume of traffic because it is essentially an urban highway interchange. So you'll see that there. And the speeds tend to be a lot higher on that section as well. This corridor is also a very high transit corridor. I think there are 7 or 8 lines that run directly down East Ohio and or on Cedar Ave or Chestnut that connect to the corridor and bring people here from different parts of the city and take people to different parts of the city from here. So it's a vital transit corridor, and the circles you see on there, the larger the circle, the higher the ridership at that stop. So the ridership at the stop just on the other side of Cedar in the park there is one of the highest, and the one at Nash Street between Nash and Canal is one of the highest ridership stops. So as you're all aware, I'm sure, this is a slide just showing the current design of the road, the current layout of the lanes. So within the business district, there's a travel lane in either direction with a parking lane on either side. And then through the bridge section, there are 2 travel lanes in either direction, and there is a bike lane on either side currently, and there's a sidewalk on the north side of the corridor there. And then the same on the other side, on the highway interchange side. We also looked at the crash data, and this crash data is from 2018 to 2022. We always like to look at a 5-year period when we look at crash data, and within that period, there were 78 total reported crashes along this corridor. And it's important to note that reported crashes are not necessarily all crashes. So there is a threshold for what constitutes a crash that can be reported to PennDOT. And so that is any crash that results in a fatality or an injury, or a car cannot be driven off on its own, so a car that needs to be towed away. So that doesn't capture a lot of crashes that are a lot more minor or close calls. But even with that sort of barrier to catching the accurate data, we still have seen a lot of crashes along this corridor. And within that, there were 7 pedestrian crashes and 0 reported bicycle crashes. And most of the crashes we're seeing are angle crashes as well. And this map that you're seeing here shows the data from the same time period. But this is showing you the locations of most of those crashes. And again, the same with the transit slide, the larger the circle, the higher the concentration of crashes on this one. And the black dots that you see on the map are locations where there was a pedestrian crash. So you can see there's a high concentration of crashes at East Ohio and Madison, East Ohio and East, East Ohio and Middle, pretty much any one of the intersections. And that corresponds to that we're seeing a high incidence of angle crashes as well, because those tend to happen at intersections. As you're all aware as well, thank you all for your continued engagement on this project. This is the third large public meeting we've had, but it's, I think, the fifth of any sort of public meeting we've had, along with an extensive online engagement. And so thank you all for all your cooperation and your participation in the process so far. We had another meeting in this very building back in September, not this section of the building, but the same building. And then we had another meeting in October at Government Center, and then we've had 2 different walkthroughs of the corridor. And so this is sort of an overview of when we collect online engagement through the Engage page. If you put a pin on the map, this is where this is sort of a heat map showing you where the highest concentrations of comments we received were, where people identified locations as in need of some attention. And that sort of was it for the overview on the project area and the engagement, and I'm going to pass it off to Panini now to go through sort of what we've heard.
Thank you, Kev. So as you already have seen that we already went through a pretty extensive community engagement process before coming to here today. And one of the biggest reasons for that is we wanted to design East Ohio Street by the community of the East Ohio Street for the future of the East Ohio Street. So that's why what you will see today on the roll plot, and also we will discuss some of the ideas here today, they're envisioned by the community. It's not by us. We're the one who actually vetted through the process and kind of figure out what would be the better way to put it back in. And that's the only portion actually we played. But the present and the future of what you're seeing on that roll plot and also here, this is actually put by all those over 250 comments that we have received from the 5 different community engagement that already being happened for this project. The biggest goal the community put for us forward is they want a corridor that we develop which will be safer for everyone. And when you're talking about everyone, in a very limited right-of-way, it can take different shape than the traditional idea or the vision that we kind of have back of our mind. If you take out one individual mode and kind of think about that, am I getting all the best practices that I was hoping to get for that single mode? You probably won't see it here because we all had that limited right-of-way desire, and we wanted to create a street safer for everyone. But if you zoom out a little bit from that single mode idea and holistically look at the corridor, you will see that all these different treatments are actually supplementing each other, helping each other, and make a safer corridor for everyone. How we are doing it. Mostly we try to do it in 3 different ways. The first thing is reduction of kinetic energy. The slower you move, even if you get hit, the severity will be less. Or the slower you move, there will be less likelihood that you will get into a crash in the first place. The second thing that we do is separation of space. In the slow-moving vehicle, if you can separate them from the high-speed vehicle, there is less likelihood that you will get into a crash. Or if you're a pedestrian, you have a separate access point than the vehicle, there is less likelihood that you will get into a conflict. And the third type of treatment that we can go for is separation by time when you are getting into the intersection. The less conflict we can ensure in there, the more safer it will be for everyone. Since we had that limited right-of-way problem in this corridor, we weren't able to do completely separation of space for all modes individually. We simply don't have the space there. So that's why along the way you will see that we have tried different ways to accommodate all these 3 principles in the different treatment that we are doing and how they're supplementing each other to create this corridor safer for all mode at the very end. So the biggest comments that we have received is regarding the pedestrian safety. We have heard a lot about the dangerous crossings that we have in our unsignalized intersection. We heard about the turning movement conflict that we are having in all of our signalized intersections. And we also heard about the missing pedestrian connection that we have to the Chestnut Street from the business district side. So in the proposal, what you will see that at the intersection, we will deploy 2 new signal treatment. One of them called lead through interval, and the second one is called lead pedestrian interval. The lead pedestrian interval is a very standard treatment where you will see that the pedestrian and the bicyclist will get a 3 to 5 second headway before the vehicle get in. what will happen on that 3 to 5 second, you will be already on the crosswalk in the middle, and you will position yourself. So when the vehicle will get the green, the pedestrian is already on the crosswalk, and it will create higher chance, the likelihood of yielding. Second comes with the lead-through interval. It's a very new treatment. The only treatment that we have done in the city is Penn and Center intersection in East Liberty. You will see it. So we do that type of treatment for the high-volume intersection. So one thing we heard in our previous engagement, that in the Penn Center type of intersection, whether it's possible we can do a PED exclusive. On Chestnut, we can do a PED exclusive. The problem is the volume of those intersections are so high. The current signal phase of that Chestnut intersection is close to 200 seconds in there, so over 3 minutes you have to wait in there. So if we create those type of PED exclusive, you have to wait over 3 minutes to get that phase. It doesn't necessarily serve everyone. So that's where this type of newer signal idea comes in. How it works is, when you're crossing the crosswalk, your main conflict is with the turning vehicle. So as long as the turning vehicle is not turning, if the vehicle is moving with you parallelly, there is no problem. And the good thing about Chestnut and also the Madison is we have those turning vehicle lane already dedicated. So what will happen, the newer treatment that we will do in Madison and also in the Chestnut, when you are crossing the crosswalk, you will see that all the turning vehicles are on red. The only vehicle move is the through movement that will parallel to you. So there will be no conflict, while at the same time you're moving vehicle, because those are really high traffic intersection. You can just simply block all of them. So those are the two type of treatment you will see that will specifically separate by time for the pedestrian and bicycle with the turning vehicle on the corridor. The second thing you will see that in the business district section from Cedar all the way up to East Street, we will focus on all those good practice, proven safety countermeasure that we have seen on those unsignalized intersection, like pedestrian refuge island, raised intersection, raised crosswalk, curb extension. You will see all of those treatment we laid out in there. One thing you might see that we try to not replicate same treatment for all the intersections similar. Big reason is whenever you're looking into this type of vertical treatment, you also have to consider that whether it's a transit route, and whether you have emergency vehicle going in there, which we do. So we have to make some judgment on there, so what type of treatment will be more appropriate in there, and based on that, we come up with those treatment on the corridor. And the third thing is we are proposing an elevated shared use path connecting the business district all the way up to Chestnut Street through the eastbound side of the corridor. The second enhancement is focusing on the motorist. So the biggest concern is generally for any business district is parking concern. The second one is the congestion concern, especially in the game days. The red light running in Madison Avenue. So that intersection has 34 crashes, 17 of them are red light running. It's that high on that intersection. And the fourth one is the lane confusion between Chestnut Street and the East Street. Through this process, we had the opportunity to talk with the businesses and also kind of observe their loading demand and all the struggle they have. We also get to talk with the community member, especially individuals who have special need or the elderly individuals who need those curb access to get to the shop. So we try to retain as much as possible the legal parking space that we have. We have somewhere around a little bit over 60 parking space we have, legal parking space in there. We will try to retain as much as possible. We might lose 4 or 5 of them with the curb extension that we are providing. We actually went through a very detailed parking study. You will find it in the memo, and what you will see is, except the Friday night and the Saturday night, the utilization rate of this corridor's parking is somewhere around 66 to 70%. And when you look at the 4-lane parking lot that you have just on the back of it, it barely get filled up 70% most of the time. So what we have to look into is finding opportunity how we can better utilize the parking lot that we already have, rather than looking for newer space. But we will also look into like creating some newer parking space on the Cedar Avenue where people already are illegally parking. We'll make a legal parking spot in there. We will put additional wayfinding signage in the PPA lot. We will optimize the signals to reduce the delay. At this moment, the Chestnut intersection has over 200-second cycle, over 3 minutes. Like if you go there, if you miss one red, the next time you will get green is close to 3 minutes, 20 seconds later. So we will reduce those cycle length to 200 seconds, so there will be less delay and less queue. So what's going to happen is one phase, now you have 25 car going in. On that time, you probably have 17 car going in, but you are getting that cycle pretty fast. We're going to do the same for Cedar, 77 seconds to we're going to reduce it to 60 seconds. And East Street and Madison, we're going to reduce them to 80 seconds because those two signals work simultaneously with each other. And the other thing is the red light running on the Madison Avenue. We are going to introduce additional signal head in there in first, because one of the biggest things we found that 12 of the 17 red light running coming from the eastbound, and you have, because of the bridge, the signal might be a little bit difficult from the visibility perspective when you're coming in eastbound. So we want to include 2 more signal head in there to first see whether it solves the problem. If it doesn't solve the problem, you might have already heard the city is trying to initiate their pilot on the red light running enforcement early. Maybe those type of enforcement also we will have to look into the coming days if it looks like it's not working on that specific intersection. And the last thing is you will see the confusion that we have on the Chestnut to East Street westbound when you're coming in 279 north or south or East Ohio Street. We are proposing a new pavement marking plan in there that will be better clean up all those confusion and all the zigzag. You can stay in the one single lane and go through the entire corridor like that. The third thing we wanted to focus is on our bicyclists. The biggest takeaway we got is dedicated bike facility need on the business district. The second thing we heard is the upgraded bike facility between East Street and the Chestnut that we already have, and how we can reduce the conflict with the turning vehicles, especially on Madison Avenue, Cedar Avenue, and Chestnut Street. As I already mentioned, that the curb demand that we have a very conflicting situation on that. If we could take out all the parking space from the business district, maybe we would be able to create a dedicated bike facility out there. But the problem is that business districts stand for the businesses. We go there because of the businesses. So it is really vitally important that while we're improving safety, we're not necessarily hurting all these businesses to do their day-to-day operation. So that's where we kind of make that judgment that let's reduce the speed of the vehicle so that even if we share the corridor, it will be much safer and much more comfortable for all of us. So that's where you will see a very low speed shared use condition that we are creating with the raised crosswalk, the raised intersection, and also the curb extension that we are proposing. One thing to note that we have seen like a 0 reported bike crash and 0 also 311 concern we have received. So it made our judgment a little bit more critical. If you heard the 311 concern, you kind of know that which specific problem you can solve in there. So unfortunately for this specific block from Cedar to East Street, we don't even heard in the 311 that kind of help us to better understand where the conflict is coming from. On top of that, we are proposing an alternative low-stress shared facility on Tripoli connecting Cedar to Chestnut, so that individuals who are not feeling comfortable utilizing the East Ohio Street, they can take that Tripoli Street neighbor way. One thing to note, it will be a separate project than the East Ohio Streetscape plan itself. We are also proposing upgraded bike facilities on west of Cedar Avenue between East Street and Chestnut Street, and also in the 16th Street approach. How does it look like? You will see it on the roll plot. Is already available in there. And then brings the most important portion, that the shared use portion where we have the mixing zone, how we can separate the bicyclist from the motorist. Because when you are merging there, if both the vehicle and you are going in the same road, there's a higher likelihood there will be conflict. And that's where the signal treatment that I just talked for the pedestrian, that's also applicable for the bicyclist. The lead pedestrian interval and lead through interval. So those two treatment, we will separate the pedestrian and the bicycle from the motor vehicle movement. So you will get that either 3 second or lead through interval. It will be over 15 second increase you will get on Madison Avenue and also in Chestnut, where we will implement that lead through interval. So you have around 15 seconds to march into those corridors and kind of place yourself, go wherever you want to go by that time before the vehicle even get in. So since we don't have the space, those are the type of innovative ideas we kind of have to deploy to make sure that we are creating that separation and make it safer for everyone without a big compromise. Transit accessibility is another one we heard a lot where we talk about more of a transit amenities. We heard a lot about how it's very difficult to cross the street, especially in the business district side, because all the intersections are unsignalized, and also bus stop consolidation. And if we do the consolidation, whether it will create an overcrowding. So in the current plan, we didn't do any kind of consolidation proposal in there, but we want to hear from the community first that if that something is desired, because the type of demand that we have inside the corridor, if we do consolidation, it will create to some extent overcrowding. We want to have that conversation with the community. We will provide improved transit amenities through this project as outlined in the PRT bus stop and street design guideline that include amenities like bus shelter, garbage can, bike parking facilities. They will include the work that's coming forward. We also improving the pedestrian crossing facilities that we already discussed, whether it's a bus bulb out, curb extension, raised crosswalk and intersection, or pedestrian refuge island. And also the bus stop that we have between Chestnut and Madison is pretty much at the middle of, at this moment. We will push it closer to the Chestnut Street so that when you get down there, you can utilize the signal to safely cross on the other side if you have to. The next thing that we heard is regarding a public safety concern regarding a drug loop that's happening, that people are utilizing the current circulation pattern that we have in the Middle Street, the first block. That's where we're seeing those incidents happening. And we heard a number of community members that whether we can do something from the network perspective to make that movement a little bit more difficult for them to happen. One thing to mention, we are a Department of Mobility Infrastructure. We are not public safety. It's a public safety concern, but from our network design, we try to solve some of the issue. One more thing to mention, that this will be a separate project. So if it looks like community is not supportive of this project, we can make the adjustment. It will be different. It will happen in a different timeline than the East Ohio Street plan itself. So what we did is basically the complaint we heard, people are coming westbound, they're making a left there, getting into middle, they're doing their purchase, they're making right to Every, they go to Nash and then get out of there. So the request we heard from a number of the community members who are specifically living on that specific block is whether we can reverse the network itself so that they can make that easy circular turn that we did. And that's exactly what we did. We are now proposing a one-way on Middle Street towards East Ohio and also one-way on Nash toward Every and Lockhart. Two additional benefit that you can get from it is now it will make the corridor more difficult to navigate, so there will be less cut-through traffic other than the individuals who are actually living on that block. Probably nobody wants to get in there. And also when you're getting out of Nash at this moment, you actually have the two travel lane that you are making the right turn. There is a lot of conflict hazard. Same goes with the bus shelter that you got there. That one actually has the highest number of ridership. With this treatment, you can actually remove all of those conflict also in there. But like I said, it's up for discussion. That's why we are here today. We want to hear more from the community, how and when they want to do it, and that's how we will move forward. The last element we heard about is the streetscape enhancement in the business district. We heard about the beautification of the business district. We heard that the gateway treatment that we can do on the East Street and also in the Cedar Avenue, because that's where you're getting into the business district itself. So all the pedestrian safety amenities that we put in on the plot, you will look like a concrete at this moment, but they don't necessarily have to be concrete. They can be a green infrastructure. We put one of the picture there. There will be more picture on that board you will see. That we can actually change those concrete infrastructure to actually green infrastructure where you can do different landscaping type of work to beautify the community. But the problem with that is DOMI simply don't have the maintenance stuff to take care of those green infrastructure. So that's where we kind of look to the community, that whether we got any partner for that. So that's the other conversation we are hoping to have today, whether it's the business leadership or the community council, whether they have any desire to take on this type of responsibility. If it looks like we have the partner to do the day-to-day maintenance work, DOMI can build those facilities for you guys for the one time. And from there on, whoever is taking charge of the maintenance will take care of those facilities moving forward. The transit amenities is the other thing that I already discussed. They will include the sitting, shelter, garbage bin, bike parking, all of this. And we are also designating the existing parking space that we have as a flex zone. What does it mean is if the businesses want their parking zone or the loading zone, they can have it, but we have businesses there who probably is looking for outdoor dining space on those places. So we are happy to work with them on that. They will lose their parking spot at their front. It will be their dining spot. But if that's what the community and the businesses want, we're looking forward to work with them on that and have those discussions today and also moving forward during the design phase. We are also will propose a number of underpass beautification work, whether it's like a mural, the art, the lighting under 279. But one thing to mention, those are in the state part, and we have very limited jurisdiction on them. So it will be included in the plan, and PennDOT will be notified on the proposals that the community wanted us to move forward. But how it will happen and when it will happen is more of like a PennDOT question than the city question. So when we were talking with the business communities, one thing we heard from multiple businesses that, hey, you're doing this work instead of doing X, Y, and Z, how it will impact my business district. So you will find a primer in the Engage page if you go there. So that's where we put 3 study. That 3 study cover around 7 cities across 28 corridor going in the West Coast, Seattle, Portland, San Francisco. Then in the middle, you got Indianapolis, Minneapolis, Memphis, and the East End and New York City. So what they did is they looked a comparison between a corridor where they did this type of pedestrian and bicycle safety enhancement project and compare it with another business district where they don't have that type of treatment. So there are total 28 corridor on those 3 studies they did. The first thing they found that this type of improvement always comes in positive impact for the economy. They always found that the local economy is thriving and flourishing after this type of improvement because more and more people more inclined and feel safe to go to those business districts. Especially the food and the service industry gets the highest benefit out of it because when you're walking, going somewhere, if you sit down, you will go for food rather than buying clothes. So food and service industry seems like the most reaping the benefit out of this type of improvement. And what they're saying that it also comes with a spillover impact for the overall community. The business district is growing. The business district is bringing more people in. It has a positive impact for the community when it's the new people are moving in, the land value of that community and else. So please go to the Engage page and you will see that whenever we invest in a safer corridor, we're actually investing for a thriving business and it will result into a vibrant community, and that's what we are seeing all over the North America. Where we are at the timeline. At this moment, we're in the community engagement phase 2 that you can see. After that, after hearing from all of you regarding the proposals that we have, we will finalize the draft plan that we have. It will get published. There will be a small time to review those final plan, and then we will finalize the plan. While we are doing it, we actually move forward with the support of the mayor's office and Councilman Wilson's office to go for a grant for the Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission's transportation set aside. And we actually received $1.5 million for this corridor. I can use a clap here, come on now. So the project extent that we got is from East Ohio Street, Cedar Avenue to the East Street. That means my business district section. So we got $1.5 million. The councilman fought really hard to give us some design money also in there. So we have the means at this moment. We just need to finalize the end where we want to go as a community. And based on that, we can move forward to the next phase. So what we have the timeline at this moment, we can finalize the plan by fall 2024. The 2025 next year, we will focus mostly on the engineering and the final design. We will have additional engagement happening on that timeline also so that you kind of see where we are heading, how many of those improvements we will be able to do with the money that we got, how many will be left out and else. And the construction timeline that we have is around like 2026. So that's what we have at this moment. I will hand it over to Jan to talk about the next step.
Thanks, Panini. So yeah, this is my contact information and Lindsay's contact information. She's your neighborhood engagement coordinator. I think some of you are already in touch with Panini and Kevin. Feel free to share feedback there. But really what we're here for next is for folks to share thoughts on the corridor extents. We are going to do a brief Q&A here. I want to keep it really focused on like overall project, not like what's going to happen at Madison and East Ohio Street. So if there are questions that are kind of like broader project-specific stuff, I think we'll spend about 10 minutes here. Sean will let me know if there's any questions on Zoom, and we'll bop over to Zoom to answer any questions there. Any questions in the room? I'm going to pass out the mic and ask folks to use it, because that's how people on Zoom can hear. There's a mic back there. Thanks.
Is it possible to shorten the timeline of the start of construction? 2026 feels a little far out to me, considering.
Ma'am, these are federal money. I don't think the timeline can be shortened. The money simply won't be available before that timeline.
We'll go here. Sean, just raise your hand if there's anybody on Zoom.
Once construction begins, is it known roughly how long it'll take, and is there going to be road closures, detours, anything like that?
It's really difficult to give you those timelines when we're only in the planning phase. In 2025, we will be back with more information on that when we'll get into more in the design phase. At this moment, no, we don't have any timeline.
I'm going to go here, and then I think you had a hand up over there, so we'll go to you next.
This isn't a question, just a comment. I want to thank you for the thoroughness you've put forth here and for already getting access to some money. It's pretty awesome. I'm real excited about this. I think the curb bump outs and the elevated crosswalks are probably the two most important things that I've seen in this plan that I'm excited about. So I'm sure there'll be details that people want to argue and discuss. But overall, I think this is a really good plan you guys put together. Thanks.
I appreciate it.
And we do take positive feedback as well as negative feedback here too. So I'm going to go here and then you.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to echo that. Thank you guys so much for doing this and for engaging the community with that. We really appreciate it, and it looks like a lot of work has gone into it, so we appreciate that. The one thing I wanted to ask about was the parking, because the Foreland Street, I actually live right opposite the Foreland Street parking lot, and it is underutilized. What can we, like, what is in the plans to have more people use that? And if that parking lot gets more utilized, can we look at reducing the amount of parking on East Ohio Street and maybe restrict it to just like, handicap parking or something like that, or maybe loading zone kind of stuff?
So we are looking into the wayfinding to ensure that we have adequate sign in there. At this moment, we probably have just one sign for the parking lot. We will try to include more sign in there so that people kind of know in there. In the long term, it's a tricky question. We don't have a very good answer, because while at the same time that parking lot is underutilized, your business district is also growing. So I don't know what will happen 2 years on when there will be more businesses in there. Probably what we are seeing at this moment, 66 to 70% utilization. It might hit it 100%, and you have no other choice but to use the Portland parking lot. You might get more businesses that you need a 3 or 4 straight parking lot in the coming days. But what we have at this moment, we felt like at least for the next couple of years and the moving forward, if everything remains as is, we have sufficient parking in there. It's just not being utilized properly, and that's where we want to focus on first.
All right, there was a question up here. I'm going to go back there and then back up here and back to you. And I really want to make sure folks have time to talk to folks. So I think we'll do like 4 more questions here. The DOMI team can answer a lot of these questions on an individual basis as well.
What happened to our lighting and dealing with the puzzle of the brick, which basically is a serious pedestrian problem in the sense that it goes up and down? Every time they do utility work, there's no base underneath of it, so you have all those waves that sink. So that issue, as well as improving the lighting, didn't seem to be in the presentation. And I am for the bump outs before someone really gets killed.
So the concrete work that we will do, ma'am, along that, like whenever we see those issues, we will fix it as part of that construction project that we will do, whether it's the bump out or the raised intersection or crosswalk. You will need like around 20 feet in both sides. So all the sidewalks that we have, we will fix all this work along with that project. So that would be something we can definitely include in the plan, but we wanted to focus on the pedestrian safety portion at this moment. So that would be the money that we got will be our number one priority. As for the lighting, we did find a couple of places where we have means for improvement, but good majority of them are actually on the state portion rather than in the city-owned section. So that is one of the reasons we didn't necessarily explicitly include them there, because that's not our right of ways. There's no way to tell whether it will happen or not, but we can probably include more information in there for our state partner if they're more willing to work on that. We can do that.
Back here with a question.
Yeah, I just had a question regarding the one-way flow changes, since that's somewhat of a separate entity. Can that happen on a more expedited timeline, potentially?
If we have the community support, yes, we can look into it.
Sorry. There's a question up here and then a question back here, and then I think we'll try and answer the rest of the questions one-on-one.
I'll just ask mine.
Okay. Did you have a question then? Yes. All right. And I did see one more hand, so instead of her, we'll come to you.
First of all, I want to echo thank you for your time put into this. It was evident it's long. I just want to make for the record, the parking in the big lot on Foreland, there's no permits available. So a lot of folks have employees and people that have to park, and they're all over the streets. If the permits were made available, the other 25 to 30% would be full. But that's blocking up our streets with the employees we all are obtaining. Second thing is, as you consider the timeframes, I think it's important to try to do that quickly, because East Ohio Street is expanding. I, for one, am expanding. And right at the time we open our businesses and all those expansions happen, the street will be closed. And those businesses that just invested all this money into opening will not have enough to sustain. So I just wanted to mention that.
We will reach out to our parking partner, parking authority, because they are the one who actually issued those permits, and we will let that information know. Yeah.
I'll also say thank you. This looks beautiful. It's very exciting. We have 3 kids. We live a block from East Ohio Street, so the safety issues are really important. And one of the things I've noticed that as you guys move around the city and do this, people who want to drive get very agitated. Like if I'm on the the ATA like parent group, and everybody's like, "Oh, we're so mad about all of this," and the bump outs, right? They hate them, which are making it safer for their children. And I wonder if incorporating some signage that's a contextual education that might say, hey, this bump out does this and will protect your children, might help get that like positive engagement with it, because I don't know why, but people like hate the bump outs, and I want the bump outs because I want my children to stay alive. So, thanks, and maybe that's a way to help.
You brought a very good point. You probably already know that the city is committed to the Vision Zero program, and one of the committee that working towards that is the education and engagement part. I feel like the suggestion that you gave is really useful. We can talk on that and kind of see that it won't be probably part of this specific project, but in general for the whole city, what type of work we can do. Definitely we can look into it.
Thank you all again for coming out. Thank you to Allegheny Center Alliance for hosting the meeting.